Hi everyone, my name is John, and I'd like to talk to you guys about a game that I own. Now, the original game is called Fluxx. I had the fantasy version of this, which is a ton of fun to play. Now, I'm going to teach you how to play and go over some of the funny things that are on these cards. Most important card is the basic rules card, as you can see right here. It says to draw one and play one. That's as simple as the game starts off. To start the game, shuffle the deck together, deal 3 cards out to each player, and then decide who goes first. In this version, there are 6 different card types. There are the creepers with this black border right here, surprise with this purple border, action cards with this blue border, keepers with this green border, and new rule cards with this yellow border. And there's also the goal cards, which are these pink border. And I'll break down each of these cards for you. First up are the creepers, the ones with the black border around here like this. The dungeon, which is a pretty common trope in most fantasy games. The rule with creepers is that if you ever happen to draw one, you have to play it immediately and then draw a replacement card. Keepers for this one are... The creepers for this one are Evil, the Dungeon, like I showed earlier, Army of the Undead, and the Dark Lord. Again, all pretty common fantasy things, which is really nice, really nice. And there's no way you can win with these cards in front of you unless there's a goal that says so. We'll go over the goals here in a bit. The next set are the surprise rules, the purple border. Now, the thing about surprise rules is that they can be played at any time, either during your turn or an opponent's turn, hence surprise. There's ones that are like the surprise, stop that. It cancels an action that another player just played. Action cards are the blue bordered ones. We'll go over some of those in a little bit. During your turn, all players must discard an action card randomly for their hand or a random card from their hand. And this card can also cancel a surprise, which is honestly really cool. Then there's Veto. Discard a new rule that player just put out when it's not your turn. During your turn, discard your choice up to 2 new rule cards. At any other time, this card can also cancel a surprise. That's mine. You know, for all the greedy little gremlins and goblins that happen to be playing this game. At a turn, when a player plays a keeper, it goes in front of you instead. So either preventing them from getting victory or helping you get victory. During your turn, steal another player's keeper in front of you. And at any time, this card can also cancel another surprise. Canceled plans. You know, like most D&D sessions. You guys ever tried to get one of those together? Man, that is difficult. Out of turn, discard a goal that another player just played and preventing them from winning. During your turn, discard the current goal. Also, other players must discard a goal or random card from their hand. And at any time, this card can cancel another surprise. And then there's Not My Problem. That is actually a pretty common thing that everyone seems to say. This is my problem. You go ahead and take care of it. When another player draws or receives a creeper, place it in front of the player of your choice. So this could, again, prevent someone from winning or something. During your turn, move a creeper from one player to another. If it's attached, detach and attach it as you choose. Some creepers are, as soon as they're played, have to attach to something. So keep that in mind when you're doing that. And also, this card can cancel another surprise. Action cards allow you to do different actions like drawing 3 cards or trading hands. Again, very handy on these. Um, then there's some unique actions in this particular version of the game. The first one is the Fireball spell. Again, for all those that play D&D, this is almost like the bread and butter of any pyromaniac wizard as soon as they get the chance to. So with this card, discard a card of any type in play anywhere except for basic rules and any other meta rules. So that means that you can get rid of a goal, a keeper, a creeper, anything like that. Alternatively, you can choose to force another player to discard their entire hand. So that can get pretty devastating depending on what's going on with that. After your turn is over, if you have a spellcaster, spellcaster keeper, I'll denote whether or not the keeper in front of you is a spellcaster. You can put it back into your hand so you can reuse it again later, which is honestly, again, really funny. The next card is the invisibility spell. Again, a pretty common fantasy trope. Your keepers are now invisible, which means that other players cannot get rid of them or destroy them. You can still use their abilities, but they are, in essence, gone from the purview of the game and cannot be interacted with. Now, how this card actually works is you have your hand like this, and then you have it flipped around like this so people know the spell card is activated. Once it gets back to your turn, if you do not have a spellcaster in front of you as a keeper, you have to discard this. The next one is a really funny callback to a very classic movie. You killed my father, prepare to die, for those of you that know The Princess Bride. This card discards all keepers and creepers that have any sword imagery in them. So, like, for example, the dreaded pirate, or the army of undead. Anything that has a sword in it gets immediately discarded. If the magic sword is discarded, on the other hand, that's another keeper over here. I'll go over that in a minute. I'll go over those cards in a minute. It gets put into the player's turn that activated that card. So that's actually pretty cool. Pretty cool. And the last unique card is Healing Spell. Take any keeper that represents a living being, so pretty much anything that is not the army of the undead, essentially, and put it into play. And if you have a spellcaster, you can put it back into your hand. So if you play this card and you grab a spellcaster, like the Cranky Magic Keeper, for example, it counts as a spellcaster. So if you happen to grab that and put it in front of you, that means that the healing spell goes back to your hand, which is actually really funny. The next set of cards are the new rule cards, again, denoted by this yellow border. These rules are part of why the game is called Flux, because the rules are always going to be in flux. You get some crazy combos, like drawing 5 cards, having to play 2 of those cards, but only having a hand limit of 1. So, yeah, it gets very crazy at a lot of points during the game. Now, for example, when it comes to drawing cards, you have to go to the highest number of that has been played. So, for example, if for instance, if, for instance, draw 2 is in place. And then someone immediately plays draw 4. That means that they have to draw 4 new cards. They have to draw up to 4, so 2 new cards for this. But if someone were to get rid of that rule and bring it back down to the basic rules of draw 1, they do not draw an additional card because they already reached the max that was played during the game, during that particular turn. And I will make a follow-up video concerning more of the rules. Like, for example, you can really mess with players by having them be able to have 3 keepers in front of them at one time. And you can also have 2 agendas active at the same time. Now, what is an adventure without a level cast of characters, items, and locations? It'd be pretty boring, all things considered. The keepers represent generic fantasy characters that one might meet in their journey, like the humble young hero, the beautiful princess, and the wise old wizard, a classic in any fantasy realm. Just take a look at Gandalf and Dumbledore for that. Other keepers also include the castle, again, pretty standard fare for fantasy things. A dragon, again, pretty standard for most fantasy realms. The magic sword, which thank you, King Arthur, for making that a thing. And another really, really useful item that most adventurers go adventuring for, the Trove of Treasure. As you do. And there's also a few other items in here as well, including the Magic Wand, which, as long as this card is in front of you and you have a keeper that represents a living character, they count as a spellcaster. So those spells that I was talking about earlier, they go back to your hand as long as you have a character and this in front of you, or just a regular spellcaster. It says on the cards whether or not they count as a spellcaster. Another thing that is also really, really handy is the Bag of Holding. With this, you ignore the hand limit rules and the keeper limit rules, because it's an infinite pocket of extra dimensional space, which is like most people's cars. Let's be real here. And then also, again, thanks to Tolkien, we have the Magic Ring, which has the same effect as the invisibility spell I talked about earlier. You keep it out as you play. Once it's activated, you have it like this to remind people that you have this spell in effect. To actually win the game, you need to have the card in front of you, so you need to strategically play it. And I will discuss in more detail the different keepers and who they might or might not represent. And lastly, you have the goals. How can you win the game? It's actually pretty easy. All you really need to do is just get the goal. And how does one go about doing that? Well, keepers, action cards, creepers, anything like that can help you obtain anything. A lot of the goals in this particular version of the game are references to different fantasy works, copy-free fantasy works of like Lord of the Rings, Harry Potter, Game of Thrones, Princess Bride, generic fantasy stuff. And it says on the card what you need to win. Like, for example, the ever classic line from Gandalf, "You shall not pass." You need the wise old wizard and any one of the Dark Lord, the Army of the Dead, or evil in front of you to win. So any of these lovely guys in order to win. And that's an example of a way that you can win with a creeper in front of you. Other ones are like a nod to the Princess Bride. As you wish. You need the humble young hero and the beautiful princess in order to win. And I'll upload another video going over the different goals and what they would be referencing. And this game is actually pretty simple, and it can take anywhere from a few minutes to nearly an hour. When I got my first copy of the game, which was Doctor Who Fluxx for Christmas, my older sister and my mom and we played like 10 different rounds. Like, we played a lot of rounds within the course of about an hour to an hour and a half, and it was so much fun. And it really didn't even get that boring. So I hope you all had fun, and I will see you next time. Until then, GG's.